Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular council meeting for April 25th, 2023. I'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Begin with a land acknowledgement. Blackfalds Town Council acknowledges that we are on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting ground, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, and Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. Our next item is the adoption of the agenda. Administration, any changes to the agenda this evening?
Yeah, Your Worship, can we move 7.2 up to 7.1, please?
Thank you, Council. Thank you, seeing none. And just before we make a motion to adopt that, I'll just acknowledge regrets from Councillor Coulter, who was unable to be here this evening, as well Deputy Mayor Sabab, who will attempt to be here a little bit later this evening. So we do have one amendment to the agenda. Someone like to move that? Councillor Sands.
I'll move to accept the agenda as amended.
Thank you. All in favor? That is unanimous. All right, we do have delegations this evening. Our first delegation, I have the honor this evening to present Alberta Emergency Service Awards. The Alberta Emergency Service Award was introduced on January 1st, 2000 for individuals who serve in Alberta and are members of the organizations involved in or directly supporting the prevention of and preparedness for the response to day-to-day emergencies. The first 12-year inaugural presentation was at the Alberta Legislature on May 15th, 2003. The province of Alberta has also announced the additional bronze bar for 22 years, a silver bar for 32 years, and a gold bar for 40 years. The following members are being recognized for their years of service. Firstly, with the presentation of the bronze bar for 22 years of service to Deputy Chief Mike Elder, and for 12 years of service medal to Captain Chris McDonald. Mike Elder joined the Blackfalds Fire Department after moving his family to town in 2000. Over the years, he has seen many changes in the fire department. He has moved through the ranks during his 22 years with the department, mentoring members, training, and playing a role in emergency management. Currently, he's employed with the department as the Deputy Fire Chief. Deputy Chief Elder is receiving the Provincial Emergency Services Bronze Bar for 22 years of commitment to the department and for our community. You didn't even have to turn your lights on and then you got your
exactly right. Thank you.
Chris McDonald's, well, I might as well get to the mic here. Chris McDonald started his firefighting career with the Red Deer County Emergency Services, initially for 3.5 years, at which point Chris and his family moved to Blackfalds, and he joined the Blackfalds Department. Chris has been active in mentoring new recruits over the past 9 years with us. In 2020, Chris was promoted to the position of captain. Captain McDonald is receiving the Alberta Emergency Services Medal for his 12 years of commitment to the department and to our community. Thank you, everyone. Our second delegation this evening is from BDO, Mitchell Kennedy and Tatiana. I'm sorry, Tatiana. How do I pronounce your last name? Thank you, Nebatovsky. From to present the 2022 audited financial statements. Welcome.
So thanks for the introduction here. Hopefully you guys can all hear me. There we go. So Tatiana is going to run you guys through our final report to you guys, and then after she's done, I'm going to take it over and run you guys through the financial statements. If at any point you guys have any questions on anything we say or discuss, please at any time go ahead and stop us, and hopefully we can elaborate and get you the answers you guys are looking for. So if you want to start it, Tatiana.
Thank you. Yes. Good evening, everyone. We're here to provide you with the results of our audit of Town of Blackfalds financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2022. The enclosed financial report includes our approach to the audit, including any significant risk identified and the nature, event, extent, and results of the audit work. We will also report any significant internal control deficiencies identified during the audit and reconfirm our independence. During the course of the audit, management made certain representation to us in discussions and in writing. We documented those representations in our audit working papers. So moving on, we're gonna look at the audit at the glance. So our planning materiality was $550,000, and our final materiality increased to $700,000, which is driven by revenue. And if revenue changes, our materiality will also change. The calculation is just 2.25% of the total revenue for the year. Also in our audit report, we confirmed that we're not aware of any fraud affecting the town. And if you have become aware of any changes to processes or aware of any instances of fraud, please come talk to us and let us know. We have complied with relevant ethical requirements and not aware of any relationship between the town of Blackfalds and our firm. We will get to our independence letter later in this presentation. As for the status of the audit, we have substantially completed the audit of the year ended December 31st, 2022 financial statements, pending 3 items: the receipt of signed management representation letter, receipt of outstanding legal confirmations, and approval of financial statements by the member of council. We conducted our audit in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards, and the objective of our audit was to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatements. For our audit findings, there were 2 significant risks identified through the audit. So the first one is the management override and the revenue recognition. The management override means that the management has the ability to override the financial information within the accounting system. We mitigate that risk by going through all manual journal entries posted by the management to ensure that are factual in nature, and we found no issues there. We also management has represented that the risk of fraud in the town is considered low, and they are not aware of any fraud. A second risk is the revenue recognition. There is a risk that revenue is not recognized in the correct period. During the year, the town reported revenue of $31.9 million, which consists of the property revenue, the user fee revenue, and revenue from grants. We mitigate the revenue recognition risk, for example, by going through the grants agreements to ensure they're recorded in the correct period, and we found no issues in revenue recognition. So with those 2 significant risks, there were no issues noted. The next page are internal control matters. We are required to report in writing about any significant deficiencies in internal control that we have identified during our audit. During the audit, we performed some procedures regarding town's internal control environment, documented operating systems to assess the design and implementation of control activities and that were relevant to the audit. We discussed and considered potential audit risk with the management, and we also considered the results of those procedures in determining the extent and nature of audit testing required. We have not identified any significant deficiencies in internal control. And moving on to our audit process. So how do we audit financial statements? So the first step is scoping. We complete a preliminary review to plan the audit. We determine the materiality level and define the audit scope. Then we focus on, we identify and assess risks. So we focus on those areas of financial statements that contain potential material misstatements. Then we design our audit process. We design the appropriate audit strategy to obtain sufficient assurance and perform audit procedures while maintaining appropriate degree of professional skepticism to conclude whether or not the financial statements are presented fairly. Then we form our opinion, and the last step is we issue the opinion, the final report. All those steps are in circles, as if we find any misstatements in one of those steps, we need to go back and revisit the previous steps to make sure all steps are complete with consideration of those findings. So the next we look at the updates for our audit process. So the Canadian Audit Standard 315 was significantly revised with a greater focus on more risk identification, assessment, and response procedures. There was new guidance on identifying and assessing risks, also additional requirements to assess the likelihood and magnitude of misstatements. For internal system of controls, there were requirements on indirect and direct controls in the system of internal controls and need of evaluation of design and implementation of controls. Also, the extended information to use of technology, and we had to document the IT environment and IT general controls and related risks. Also, more explicit standback requirements for evaluation of completeness and appropriateness of risk assessment procedures. So how does those changes impact the town? So we obviously did more inquiry and observation and inspection procedures, especially for risk related to the use of technology. There was no change to communicating significant risks. The audit procedures focused on addressing risk identified, and changes was for more consistent and effective audits with improved responses to identified risk audit quality. So this slide is just the information about BDO, and we're gonna skip this as those are some resources that you can read. So we're gonna go to the last page, which is the independence letter. And so this letter outlines that we are truly independent of Town of Blackfalds, which allows us to do this engagement. To ensure our independence, we have to ensure that we are not holding any financial interest with town. We're not holding a position, either directly or indirectly, that gives us the right or responsibility to have significant influence over financial information. We're not having any personal or business relationship that might impact our judgment. We're not having economic dependence on the client, and we are not providing any additional services to management that are outside of the scope of this engagement. This letter to confirm that we are independent with respect of Town of Blackfalds within the meaning of the rules of professional conduct and of the Chartered Professional Accountants of Alberta. That's all I have. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you. Council, any questions for Mitchell or Tatiana? Nice slides, made it clear and easy to understand.
Okay, that being said, I'm going to move you guys to the financial statements. I'll start with the audit report. So we have audited the consolidated financial statements for the Town of Blackfalds. In our opinion, these accompanying financial statements directly in front of you are free from material misstatements. As Tatiana has discussed in the final letter, we conduct our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. Even though we assist the Town of Blackfalds in the preparation of these financial statements are in fact the responsibility of the management's assessment of the going concern accounting policies. in preparing the consolidated financial statements, our objective is to obtain reasonable assurance to ensure that these financial statements are free from material misstatements. So ways we ensure that these financial statements are true and free from material misstatement is we identify and assess risks. As Tatiana was going through the circular charts, we obtain our audit evidence that is sufficient and appropriate to provide our basis of opinion. We obtain an understanding of your internal controls that are relevant to the audit. We evaluate the appropriateness of the accounting policies. We also conclude on the appropriateness of management's use of the going concern basis of accounting. And we evaluate the overall presentation, structure, and content within these financial statements. And at the very end, we obviously obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to ensure that everything is true in nature. So I'm going to start with the balance sheet here. So for the balance sheet, it's important to know that this is a snapshot as at December 31st, 2022, and it has the comparative column for 2021. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a high-level analytic to basically highlight any significant changes that happened between this year and last year and kind of elaborate in more context as to what's causing the actual swings. So I'll talk more about the cash when I get to the statement of cash flows. But here you can see your accounts receivable dropped from about $5 million to $4 million. That's just a reduction due to your MSI capital of about $1 million from the previous year. Your investments went up just because you guys purchased about $2 million more in investments in the year. Going further down, the only real significant changes here are your accounts payable and accrued liabilities. So that major swing is being caused by your holdbacks. And then going further down, there's your long-term debt. Your reduction in long-term debt is just you guys paying down your principal portion of your debt. And then going further down to your TCA. So in the year, you guys purchased about $7 million in capital assets, and then you had about $6 million in amortization. So that net difference is causing the majority of your swing in your TCA. So your accumulated surplus at the end of the year is increased by about $4 million from $191 million to about $195 million. So the next page is your statement of operations. So what I like to do with this page is I like to compare where you guys are at with your budget and see how close you guys are to your budget to your actual. If there's any variances between your budget to your actual, I then go and compare you guys to the previous year to see if that's normal or if there's any swings in the year. So just going all the way down here, you can kind of see you budgeted about $26 million. Your total actual revenue is approximately $26 million. So you're pretty in alignment to what you guys had budgeted for in the year. Going further down to your expenses, you can see you budgeted about $27.3 million in expenses. Your total expenses were actually about 27.9. So you guys are pretty close with your overall budgeting process where you budgeted a total deficiency before capital grants of about $1.5 million. And then you see your government transfers for capital. That's just your capital grants in the year. So your actual excess of revenue over expenditures is about $2.5 million, which is helping increase your accumulated surplus from $191 million to the $195. Okay. So I'm going to run you guys through the statement of cash flows here. So just remember that the starting point for your statement of cash flows is going to be your $4.1 million, which is your excess of revenue over expenditures, your actual. And so your starting point is the 4.1 million. Then we have to add back your non-cash items like amortization. And then you have your loss on your TCA for about 60,000. And then you have your changes in your net or your non-cash operating balances. So these are just changes in your balance sheet. So if you were to go to your balance sheet and see what your current year taxes receivable was versus your last year, this is just highlighting what the changes were between those two balances. So the big changes here is your accounts receivables changed by about $1 million, and then your accounts payable and accrued liabilities changed by about $2.8 million, and then your deferred revenue by about $900,000. Going down to your capital transactions here, you can see that you guys bought about $7.2 million in capital assets. You sold some of your capital assets and you received about $100,000 in proceeds. And then here's your purchase of investments for about $2.2 million. And then your repayment of long-term debt for about $1.2 million. Okay. So I'm going to run you through some of the notes. So at the end of the year, you guys had about $18.7 million in cash. Of this $18.7 million in cash, you have approximately 1.4 million of that that's currently restricted. This is just your deferred revenue amounts. And I can show you those in more detail when I get to the deferred revenue notes. So here's your deferred revenue. So your starting point is going to be your ending balance for last year for your deferred revenue. This is going to be made up mostly of your operating and capital grants in the year. So in the year, you guys received about $6.3 million in grants. Of the $6.3 million, you guys recognized about 7.2, which is leaving your overall change in your ending balance to be about $3.3 million in deferred revenue, mostly. There are other portions in there that aren't grant related, but it effectively means that you have about $3.3 million sitting in deferred that you have yet to spend expenditures or capital assets for. Okay, and then here's your long-term debt note. So you had about $21.2 million in debt. This is just to kind of highlight what your scheduled payments are going to look like over the next 5 years. So effectively, you're going to be paying about $1.8 million for the next 3 years. And then in 2026, it's going to drop to about 1.5. Thereafter doesn't mean at the end of these 5 years, you're going to all of a sudden have to pay the 18 million. It's just where it cuts off. So that's the remaining portion rather. Okay. Now I'm going to run you guys through your change in accumulated surplus. So your accumulated surplus is effectively the book value of the municipality. And so it's broken up into 3 major categories. There's your equity in TCA. So your equity in TCA is effectively the book value of the municipality's capital assets. So it's just taking your net book value of your capital assets, subtracting off your long-term debt. And then you have your restricted surplus. So this is money that council sets aside. So you currently have about $24 million set aside for future projects. And then you have your unrestricted surplus of about $3.8 million, which is just amounts in your equity that you don't currently have set up in equity in TCA or your reserves. So you have about $33 million in financial assets, which means your reserves are currently funded, which is a good thing. So, okay, there's the debt limits. So the debt limits is kind of a weird one. The reason why it's a little weird is because it's dictated based off of your operating revenue. So anytime your operating revenue kind of fluctuates from a year-to-year basis, your debt limit actually fluctuates as well. And so the debt limit is defined under the MGA. It basically says it's going to take your operating revenue and multiply it by $1.5 million. And so that says this is the absolute max debt that you should have under the guidance under the MGA. It's not like a ceiling. You can theoretically go beyond that ceiling, but if you do, you have to get permission through municipal affairs to do so. So if you look at your total debt limit, it's about $40.1 million at the end of 2022. And your total debt that you currently have right now is about 21.2, which leaves you guys with the availability of about $19 million in potential debt that you guys could theoretically take out. The second component here is your debt servicing limit. So similar to your debt limit, it's also driven by your operating revenue, where in this case, it's multiplied by 0.25. So this basically means this is the amount of debt, including principal and interest payments, that you can service in 1 year. So you have to keep both of these in consideration when you take out debt, if you decide to take out debt for whatever reason. So right now, your debt servicing limit is about 6.7. You're servicing about 1.8, which means you can service about 4.9. So, and then there's the expense by object. So this is one of my favorite notes. The reason why I like this note is because on your statement of operations, it outlines what your total expenses are by function rather than by object. So if you're ever curious to know, okay, I can see that I have this much in expenses, but what are my expenses actually made up of? Well, this 27.9 million will tie exactly to your statement of operations. It's just a different perspective of showing what your actual expenses are. So in this situation, it says your salaries and wages was about $9.8 million. contract. General services about 4.4. And then you can kind of see where it's at from your budgeting perspective to what actually happened in the year, and also your comparative for 2021 as well. It's kind of my general spiel. I don't know if you guys have any questions on what we discussed at all today, but the good news is you guys are in good financial health. So
Thank you, Council. Okay, no, I think you're correct. I think presented clearly enough that there's no additional questions, is it? Council, thanks so much.
okay, I do want to thank Justin, Darrell, and Jordan, obviously, for you guys' help. You guys are easy to work with, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Have a great evening. So we have no public hearing this evening. Business arising from the minutes. Item 6.1, Bylaw 1281.23, the 2023 property tax rate bylaw, second and third reading.
Thank you, Worship. Bylaw 1281.23 is the 2023 property tax rate bylaw. On April 11th, we did present first reading of this bylaw for council, and it was carried unanimously. Under assessment bases, I'll just mention a couple of highlights of what's happened on our assessment base over the last year to this year. Residential tax base has increased around 109 million, or just over 9% on the residential side, and non-residential increased of around $11 million, which is around 7%. New assessment, we get excited about new assessment because it is new tax revenue for the town. Residential assessments grew 1.46% and non-residential grew at 0.32%, which provides around $141,000 worth of new revenue to the town. At the regular council meeting on April 11th, the Lacombe Foundation requisition, there was a question about that. What drivers was the increases of that requisition? Under information today, we do have the audited financial statements from the foundation, and under page 19 shows kind of the statement of operations for the Blackfalds affordable housing, and that showed increases on callable debt, property taxes, wages and benefits. I did reach out to the foundation, and they just got back to me today with more information over and above what we got in this memo, but pretty much the assumptions that we made here are the driving forces of that, and I will send out the correspondence after this council meeting. Average assessments. So when we talk property taxes, we talk property tax increases based on average assessments. So generally, our average assessment in Blackfalds here is just around $316,000. So the bill is made up of three different lines there: property taxes, school requisitions, and seniors requisitions. We did have the municipal tax rate increase at 4.7% on average. On that 316, we did have a reduction in the school requisitions, and then an increase in the seniors requisition, as previously mentioned. Overall, a house valued at $316,000 will get a $73 increase, which equates to an average of 2.2%. It's important to note that out of all the property taxes that the town does bring in, we receive approximately 75% for municipal uses. This year, we will be holding a property assessment Q&A event. The event will give citizens the opportunity to discuss concerns and questions regarding their assessment value of their property. The town property assessor will be on site and will be booking 15-minute appointments between 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock on June 5th, 2023. This will, like I mentioned, give residents, if they want to have a sit down with the property assessor, the one-on-one there. We will advertise this Q&A event through our social media, monthly utility bills, and on our website. The administration recommendation tonight is to give second and third reading to this bylaw. And with that, I'll open up for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Pell.
Thank you. So through the chair to Director DeBresser, acting CAO DeBresser, interim acting CAO DeBresser. You got a lot of titles, dude. So two questions. In regards to the event with the assessor, will there be general information for people to drop in, or is it by appointment only?
Yeah, a good question. If we're going with the book the appointment, however, he's available by phone if they don't want to come in face to face. We've decided to do a appointment schedule because we feel that a 6 o'clock rush may have people waiting for some time if there's back-to-back kind of appointments. So we will be taking appointments, but he is available pretty much all day, every day.
Perfect. Thank you. And then my second question is just information. So in the past, the information that's gone out along with the property tax notices showing that nice little pie chart, et cetera. I'm just wondering if this year that will include details regarding the tax increase and what percentage of it was because of retroactive RCMP payments and what percentage of that increase is actually coming to the town.
Yes, we can definitely put forward a kind of a brochure. We can't change the back of the bill. We did that one year that we presented all the information on the back of the actual property tax bill. However, we need that space for important information on appeals and whatnot. So we can do a leaflet to put in there,
Supplementary.
kind of like the drivers of what we felt. But yeah, definitely the RCMP was a major driver, and we can definitely get that information out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we do have the two administrative recommendations. Councillor Sands.
I'll move that council move to give second reading to bylaw 1281.23, 2023 property tax rate bylaw for the town of Blackfalds as presented.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Appel.
Thank you. I move that council move to give third final reading to bylaw 1281.23, the 2023 property tax rate bylaw for the town of Blackfalds as presented.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to business. Business item 7.1, 2022 audited financial statements. Manager Boutte.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. This evening, I'm bringing forward the 2022 consolidated financial statements for approval from Council. You heard from the auditors a few minutes ago as they presented the notes to the statements and consolidated statements. I'm hoping that they were able to address any concerns that you may have had. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank all the efforts that the BDO audit team put in to their work, and they kept to the timelines. So that being said, I'm asking for approval of the financial statements.
Thank you. And we've gone through this quite a bit, but if there are any questions before we put forth the motion, seeing none. Councillor Stende.
I would like to say thank you to BDO as well. They always do an awesome job. It was fantastic to go through it. It was easy to read and it was easy to understand. So saying that, I move that council move to approve the 2022 consolidated financial statements as presented.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? And that is unanimous. And that brings us to 7.2, and that being the CAO report.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Before you do have the CAO report, but that's all I'll run through. April was a busy month, as you're aware. Lots going on. So under general, we've got been supporting and assisting a range of projects, including skater updates, spring budget adjustments, and year-end audit. I attended the joint meeting with Wolf Creek School Division, Habitat for Humanity dedication, and Beyond Food Hub ribbon cutting ceremony. Also attended the public open house at the EBC Centre on April 12th. Assisted with the Economic Development Officer recruitment efforts, with interviews being arranged with the shortlisted applicants. Attended both the North Red Deer River Water and the North Red Deer Regional Wastewater Commission meetings, and we've been working with the benefit consultant to review various options on benefit renewal rates. Under enforcements and protective services, Municipal enforcement through e-ticketing, 50 TSA violation tickets have been issued and 6 warnings. Speeding continues to be an ongoing issue within the town, recently having charged a motorcycle operator with 128 kilometres an hour in a 60 zone. 29 tickets have been written by hand and forwarded in the mail. These include such offences as passing a school bus, abandoned vehicles, parking violations, failure to obey traffic control devices, and other violations under municipal bylaws. Peace officers have been active on their shifts with municipal complaints being proactive with the town's bylaw breaches. In total, 31 files have been opened. Officers have been assisting with street sweeping, by calling resident owners. Approximately 57 owners have been contacted to move their vehicles for the street cleaning team. 51 Travis permits have been issued. Permits are for oversized vehicles traveling within town. A vehicle equipment inspection check stop was conducted during which time officers conducted 5 fuel tank dips, with 1 sample being sent away for lab for analysis. The following was found during the check stop: 4 trailers with faulty emergency brakes, 2 license plates were found to be not clearly visible, 2 unregistered motor vehicles, 1 trailer with less than 2 safety chains, 2 failed to provide insurance, and 1 damaged license plate, resulting in 8 violation tickets being issued with 5 warnings. Under emergency management, 2 staff are enrolled and in taking the regional all hazard incident management team training, which comprised of 3 blocks and takes a total of 5 days. This training will help them, will provide them with the knowledge that will enable them to be part of the team and can be called upon should other communities need assistance. This will bring the total number of trained to this level in Blackfalds to 5. Under fire, the department will be hosting an electric vehicle training weekend for first responders, featuring a full-size cutaway of a Tesla. Training will to teach responders what to expect with the new technology of electric vehicles. This course has been open for surrounding departments as well. An elevator rescue course is planned for May, and we have a few spots open for outside departments. 12 members have started their Blue Card Command course. This course is to familiarise them with the fire ground terminology, communications, and accountability as well. Deputy Chief Elder and Chief Cote have finished their Level 2 fire inspection course and are waiting on their results. This will allow them to proctor our department and outside agencies. Call volume is on pace with last year. Unfortunately, they have been having to respond to quite a few alarm calls, not emergent. The rapid intervention packs have arrived and breathing apparatus is being put together for them. The new fire apparatus, which is our engine, should be hitting the production floor within the next few months. Just want to note that the Fireman's Bowl is May 6th at the Community Hall for council to attend if they shall wish. RSVP by May 1st and tickets are $85. RCMP in Blackfalds from January to the end of March 2023 when compared to the same time frame in 2022. Within the town, break and enters were showing an 81% decrease. Theft of motor vehicles has decreased 75%, and theft under 5,000 decreased 43%. So good news there. From January to the end of March 2023, when compared to the same time frame in 2022, there have been 8 fewer person crime offences, 26 fewer property crime, and 33 fewer total criminal code offences. Under occupational health and safety, the Joint Health and Safety Committee meeting was held on April 18th, 2023. At this time, wearing of jewelry was discussed as the need to put out a directive with hazard assessments and discussions with possibility of a town directive. This matter will be discussed further due to an injury that had occurred. Work continues on the recommendations for the core audit and is moving along well. The contractor will be coming in early May to conduct noise level assessments on equipment and workspaces to determine the level of hearing protection required in facilities while operating equipment. First aid kits have been dispersed to all departments and facilities to meet the new regulations on April 1st. Under economic development, the economic development officer attended various conferences, meetings, including Tourism Red Deer AGM, the Central Alberta Tourism Alliance monthly meeting, with virtual attendance at the Economic Development Alberta Experience Conference. Assisted FCSS grant proposal for Rural Health Week and supported FCSS with organizational and sponsorship attraction for Volunteer of the Year awards. Received and reviewed the e-scooter operator agreement proposal, which is on tonight's agenda, and reviewed the EV charging station program with a local dealer regarding their experiences with procurement and installation. Under corporate services, finance and administration, working through the spring budget adjustments for 2023 that are necessary to balance. The changes are on tonight's agenda as well. BDO audit has been completed as they just presented. And we completed the 2023 property tax rate bylaw with the open house slated for June 5th, as mentioned. Under marketing and communications, Blackfalds Days prep is underway, working with CSD to create the Blackfalds Day brochure, promoting the community parade, assisting with event details, and offering support for organizations also participating in events. Building signage is being updated. This is including all wayfinding, outdated signage in front of the Blackfalds Food Bank, the interior signage, including no smoking signs and floor plans. Volunteer marketing and communications for the Best of Blackfalds youth recognition, assistance with FCSS, and various marketing and communication needs for the volunteer awards events, which include sponsorship signage, itineraries, posters, photographies, and requests. Under IT and records management, the purchase of the new copier for the Civic Centre was installed today, and the current one will be repurposed to the fire hall, with the old one from the fire hall being sent to disposal at the end of life. IT and records management are configuring summer staff profiles in preparation for the summer staff orientation on May 1st, and started a 3-week trial of Agulus to increase security for remote access into our SCADA systems, provide administrative management controls through zero trust architecture, and streamlined access with streamless end user experiences. Under infrastructure and property services, staff were busy researching, preparing for the open house on Whistle Cessation to Urban Hands in the Westwood Park Plaza, which took place on April 12th. The department has been busy enforcing and updating development conditions for the Vista Trail commercial property, including unauthorized development at the adjacent site to the north and other areas in town. We encourage developers and installers to contact the town directly to ensure proper permits are obtained before starting excavation or working on our roadways, facilities, and parks. Public work crews have been busy getting ready for spring cleanup, scheduled for the first part of May, starting sweeping, hydrant flushing, and switching over equipment and staff from winter to summer operations. On a similar note, Public Works is still looking for the mechanic. However, we were successful in filling 2 part-time summer works labourer positions. Under community services, Abbey Centre, we have Petra Banks joining the Abbey Centre as the aquatics programmer on April 11th. Petra will be an amazing addition as she has knowledge and experience gained from working in other municipal run pools. Approximately 20 aquatic staffs will be returning for the 2023 summer season, and their rehire interviews are now complete. And the field house 2/3 curtains is non-operational at this time. We're awaiting the technician to come out and troubleshoot. We hope for a resolution before our next full field house booking, which is May 12th to 14th. Under projects, the arena light poles will be changed out during the week of April 24th to 28th. Concept lighting has given the new light heads, and they'll be correcting the yellow shadows on the ice. Also, 45 replacement drivers for the lights in the library should be done the first week of May. The Plaza project is to resume shortly, and we met with the contractor on site at April 20th. Under events, the Centennial Cup announcement for Hockey Canada has been postponed at this stage. The town has secured a freestyle bike skills competition on July 29th at our Vesta Energy Bike Skills Park. House of Wheels from Edmonton will be sponsoring that event. We're adding another event to Blackfalds Days with the Central AB Arm Wrestling Championship on Saturday, June 17th at the Ag Society Amphitheatre. Okay, last page. Eagle Builder Centre. It's been a busy month at the EBC, as you're well aware. 8 sellout crowds for the games there for the Junior A Bulldogs. Exciting to see everyone come to the community enjoying themselves during the playoff run. Lacrosse Association has started up on April 5th and will run right through to the end of June. Under FCSS, the volunteer celebration planning continues. Volunteer appreciation took place on April 19th, with over 125 members of the community coming together and recognizing the Best of Blackfalds. Youth recognition is scheduled for May 3rd. The collaboration of members involved with the Youth Action Coalition worked together, and FCSS submitted a 3-year, $300,000 grant request to the Central Alberta United Way for Mental Health Therapist Initiative. Grant decisions will be made in June. And Seniors Walking Club has been booming, some days seeing more than 40 individuals coming out to the track. Under Parks and Facilities, the Parks and Facilities team have been working hard this spring getting ready for the 13 summer staff that will be joining us on May 1st by getting all the equipment ready for mowing, trimming, as well as preparing for onboarding documents and training plans. The Blackfalds Bulldogs are hosting their spring camp on April 21st through to 23rd. The Arena 1 ice will be removed by May 3rd. Facility team will then start the process of removing the glass and installing the barriers. Pike Skills Park is slowly drying and is slated for open for the May long weekend, according to the Outdoor Facilities Operating Plan that was approved by the Rec, Culture and Parks Board March 2022. The tennis courts are already open, but it says here open by the end of April. So that is the busy month of April, and then I'll open up for any questions or comments.
Councillor Pell.
Thank you. I just have one question, and it's regarding the Urban Hen Survey, as it does close next week. Would you be able to let council know, I don't expect you to have the number off the top of your head, but how many surveys have been completed thus far, and if it will be advertised again before it closes next week?
Yeah, we'll get that information for you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And I just have one question, just a clarification under IT. You mentioned the use of the Agillicus software. Is that a VPN software that could be used for general use? I know that council has indicated they would like some access through a VPN if possible.
Yeah, so it's definitely the control of people accessing the computers at the SCADA system. And it was a 2-week trial to see how it goes. However, on May 9th, we'll be bringing a memo to council for records management software, which has the ability to have the VPN access in there. So definitely, I know VPNs have been on the discussion for use of access and whatnot. And yeah, May 9th, we'll be having that discussion as well.
Thank you. And then just one other quick discussion of Eagle Builders Center, something that was mentioned just before the meeting, and I had seen it as well on Facebook. And I don't know if it's rumor or, of a circus or something. Is there actually a circus that's going to be hosted at Eagle Builders Center?
Yes, we will actually have, I think, 2 circuses coming to town.
Okay. And will we get any information about that, or are we just going to be surprised? And
Yeah, we could provide some information for you guys for sure.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right. If there's no other questions, can I get a motion to accept the CAO's report as information? Councillor Sands.
I'll move to accept the CAO report as information.
Thank you. All in favor? That's unanimous. Circus coming to town. Thank you. 7.3, 2023 spring budget adjustments. It's your night tonight.
Once a year. Good evening again. So presented before you is the 2023 spring adjustment document.
Can I just get you to hit the mic? Yeah, thank you.
The original budget was approved December 13th, 2022, but typically there are some unforeseen items that at the time of budget approval that can have an impact on town operations and must be adjusted in the spring. So these adjustments have become known since the approval of the budget, and they're listed in Appendix A. Some affect revenue and some affect the expenses. By carefully reviewing the impacts of each of the adjustments and making modifications, the net change in expenses is $157,000, and the net increase in revenue is $157,000. So the budget remains balanced. Excuse me. In addition to the budget changes for operating, there was also a capital budget adjustment. This is the cost of a vehicle hoist and associated equipment that has increased since capital plan was approved. The additional $20,000 is required to complete the project and has also been added as a spring adjustment to the capital budget. After reviewing Appendix A that outlines all the items, does council have any questions regarding the spring adjustments?
Just give an extra moment for Deputy Mayor Fobb to settle in, just in case she's got anything. You're good? Okay. No, I don't see any.
So if there's no questions, then I would like to proceed with a motion to get council to accept the budget adjustments as presented.
Thank you. We'd have two motions to consider. Councillor Stendy.
I'm prepared to move that council move to accept the 2023 operating budget adjustments as presented.
Thank you. Any debate or discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor? That is unanimous. Second motion for capital. Councillor Sands.
I'll move that council move to accept the 2023 capital adjustment as presented.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? That is also unanimous. Thank you. Item 7.4, quarterly financial report for the period ending March 31st.
Yes, attached is the financial statements for the period ending March 31st. They include the operating statement, variance analysis, capital project report, and council expenditure report. These reports are meant to give council an overview of the town activities to date. Appendix A is the operating statement and revenue and expenditures. So this report displays the town revenues by division and compares it to the annual budget and calculates the variance and a percentage of the budget. If the budget was divided equally throughout the year, we'd expect to see about 25% of the annual budget each quarter. But in actuality, neither earnings or spending is equal for each budget for each quarter, but this serves as a general performance gauge and can alert us to any potential issues or concerns. Right now, the operating statement for this period shows the town has earned 5.5 million, which is 23% of the annual budget. Expenditures during that same period are 5 million, or 23% of the annual budget. The surplus year to date from operations is $506,048. This surplus does not include transfers, and so the town operations are considered reasonable for this quarter. Environmental services are displayed separately because they are not a tax-supported item. Revenue for this quarter is 1.8 million. Expenses are 1.4, giving a surplus of 450,000. The surplus in environmental services will be transferred to the utility reserve at the end of the year to support utility infrastructure. Also included with Appendix A are the two pie charts that create a visual of each department for their revenue and the percentage of the overall town revenue, and expenses as a percentage of the overall town expenses. Appendix B is the divisional statements and variance analysis. This gives a brief explanation beside each of the divisions. Many town activities are seasonal in nature, so revenue and expenditures for some activities have not yet transpired, including day camps, swimming lessons, special events, camping revenue, and expenses related to FCSS programming some programs. Recreations, parks, infrastructure services, and planning and development are seasonal. Overall, the town operations are on track, and I'd reference Appendix B for more explanations. Appendix C is the capital project summary. This report's intended to show you the status of the capital projects to date as of March 31st. Each project's listed with the approved budget and carry forward budgets and expenditures to date. The projects were carried over from prior years include the Freightliner pumper truck, Womax Road and Greg Street realignment, pavement quality study, border paving Plaza, McKay Ranch lift station, and Northwest area storm systems. New projects that have commenced this quarter include fire department sign, washing machines, the vehicle hoisting equipment, skid steer, light trucks, and pool equipment at the Abbey. In this first quarter, the town has spent $322,000 on capital projects and is considered reasonably on track. Appendix D, the final report in the package is the councillor expenditure report. This report's intended to show the council expenditures year to date, and there's no, these are considered reasonable for the first quarter of the year. No concerns there. Does council have any questions or comments regarding any of these financial reports?
I see none.
All right, if there's no questions, then we recommend council accept these reports as information.
Thank you. So we do have 3 administrative recommendations for us. Councillor Powell.
Thank you. I move council accepts the operating statement and variance report for the 3-month period ending March 31st, 2023.
Thank you. Debate or discussion on the motion? All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Bob.
I'll move that council accepts the capital project report for the period ending March 31st, 2023.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? Unanimous as well. Councillor Stenday.
I'll move that council accepts the council expenditure report for the period ending March 31st, 2023.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? And all in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you. And that brings us to 7.5, bylaw 1275.23, the land use bylaw, the housekeeping amendments. First reading.
Land use bylaws provide the blueprint for all development that occurs within the town's limits. So it's really important that we keep them up to date and relevant. I'm treating this land use bylaw as a living document, which is why we're bringing these housekeeping amendments before you. There was some changes to provincial legislation pertaining to subdivision and development regulations, and staff, now that they've been working with the new land use bylaw, have identified some housekeeping amendments. So without further ado, I'll run through these amendments real quickly for council. Amendment numbers 2.1, 2.4, 2.7, and 2.10 to 2.17 all pertain to the recent changes to the provincial regulations regarding subdivision and development. Many of the changes are to reflect the new name of the regulations, being matters relating to subdivision development regulation, and to reflect that those regulations no longer restrict food establishments from the working area or disposal areas of landfills, waste management facilities, or of an operating storage site. The proposed amendments also update that variances to landfills, waste management facilities, or operating storage sites can now be signed off by a professional engineer who prepares a report in accordance with the guide for setback reviews, as opposed to requiring written consent from the deputy minister. Amendments 2.2, 2.23, and 2.25 to 27 reintroduce retail liquor as a use with a definition and adding the use into the same land use districts as it was with the previous land use bylaw. We just missed that use in this new land use bylaw. Amendment number 2.3 will enable the development officers to make decisions on sign applications while still allowing them to refer a sign application to the Municipal Planning Commission. Amendment numbers 2.5 and 2.6 are proposed to make it clear when a development permit application is considered complete and received. These amendments have been encouraged by other municipalities as they have been matters subject to appeals when an application is submitted electronically. Amendment number 2.8 is to clarify that there is a specific section pertaining to sign variances that have a different variance threshold for development authorities. Amendment number 2.9 proposes to remove the section on compliance certificates, as Council has recently approved a certificate of compliance policies and procedures. Amendment number 2.18 brings back an important element of driveway length, requiring that driveways are either 6 meters in length or 1 meter in length. And this prevents overhang of vehicles into lanes and driveways or drive aisles. Amendment numbers 2.19 and 2.20 propose to remove barrier-free parking regulations and refer the requirements to whatever the Alberta Building Code requires. Amendment number 2.21 alters the wording in the section pertaining to sign permits from stating that a development officer shall, meaning they must, issue a permit, to that the development officer may issue a decision. Amendment number 2.22 proposes to update the wording to reflect the newly adopted election sign bylaw. Amendment number 2.24 removes a site exception in the Commercial Central District, the C1 district, that was specifically there to allow Grandin Auto to remain in that location. However, that property was redistricted when we brought in our new land use bylaw in April of last year. That property is now zoned light industrial, so this site exception in the Commercial Central District is no longer needed. And lastly, amendment number 2.28 proposes to remove farmers market from the list of discretionary uses as it's already a listed permitted use. This bylaw was presented at the April 17th, 2023 Standing Committee of Council meeting where the following recommendations were carried unanimously. Councillor Sands moved that the Standing Committee of Council recommend to Council to give first reading to bylaw 1275-23. And secondly, Councillor Stendy moved that Standing Committee of Council recommend to Council upon giving first reading to bylaw 1275-23 to set a public hearing for May 23rd, 2023 at 7 p.m. in Council chambers. And the administrative recommendation is that Council give first reading to bylaw 1275.23, land use bylaw housekeeping amendments as presented. And secondly, that Council, upon giving first reading to bylaw 1275.23, set a public hearing date for May 23rd, 2023 at 7 p.m. in Council chambers. Thank you.
Okay, I open up the floor for questions, comments. Councillor Dennis.
I was just wondering, reading over the land use bylaw, which is pretty time consuming. But after our last delegation that was here, and in the old land use bylaw that they quoted, don't know if I have the number here, but for any land use amendment applications, like 2.3 on here on page 125 in our council package here, it doesn't have anything about written notice to adjacent landowners when there's an amendment to land use. I was just wondering if that could be put in there.
Through Mayor Hoover, the landowner notification is a Municipal Government Act requirement. And so if there's a redistricting to a property, we are required to send notification to adjacent landowners.
So it doesn't have to be in our...
It does not, no.
No? But it is a requirement?
Yes, it is. So
Okay.
yeah. With the last redistricting that council saw, I believe it was for the Protective Services subdivision, all of the adjacent landowners, including Lacombe County and all the referral agencies, were sent notification and given an opportunity to comment.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments, questions? Seeing none, we do have the two administrative recommendations. Deputy Mayor Swab.
I'll move that council give first reading to bylaw 1275.23, land use bylaw housekeeping amendments as presented.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Pell.
Thank you. I move that council, upon giving first reading to bylaw 1275.23, set a public hearing date for May 23rd, 2023 at 7 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. We'll see you on the 23rd. That brings us to 7.6, the shared micro mobility e-scooter Neuron proposal.
Good evening, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, councillors. I'm pleased to be here tonight to present the Neuron e-scooter mobility proposal. I did joke with interim CAO DeBresser this morning that I feel like my title should change to Electric Development Officer in light of this business item and previous. I digress. So some background, as you would have read, is that Neuron Mobility Canada, the proponent in this proposal, provided a operator agreement to us on April 14th for our review and consideration. It's substantially similar to Roll Technologies agreement in its introduction. So Some of the highlights include an 18-month term is initially proposed, entirely funded by the proponent. Scooters will be maxed out at 20 kilometers per hour, which was, again, similar to roll technologies. They are allowed to operate in public spaces as identified by administration. They will not be permitted on highways, and riders must be 16 years or older to operate. Again, much like our previous operator, Neuron utilizes an app-based program where users can scan a QR code to gain access to the scooter. Neuron scooters have a proprietary e-helmet lock, so each scooter is equipped with a helmet and is actually physically locked to the scooter. So unlike roll, where there was some helmet concerns there, but Neuron has a pretty interesting technology that the helmets are included with the scooters. So again, similar to roll, the geofence perimeters will be utilized to ensure that the scooter itself is going slow in slow speed zones, will not be in no park and no ride zones. And additionally, there is some other areas identified within the proposal, including the Bike Skills Park, Skate Park, and All-Star Park, which would be off limits to scooter use as well. And so, again, should this proposal be accepted and the agreement entered into, we will, of course, clarify all that with Neuron and make sure that we don't have scooters where we don't want them or shouldn't be. Further implementation, of course, we will monitor the program routes and standards as I suggested. We will regulate the micro-mobility use in line with current enforcement levels. I did, in speaking with Neuron, they did suggest that they're in the midst of conversations with the City of Lacombe and the Town of Sylvan Lake for an operator agreement as well. Regarding the Trans-Canada Trail and use in Lacombe County and Red Deer County, the Neuron suggested that ultimately their experience has been that rides of that length were not really, riders were not interested in going on a ride that length, and it would be cost prohibitive, in fact. And so, as we've outlined here, should that interest come forward, we would review that with Neuron and the counties as necessary. So, in terms of legislative implications, I will note that, of course, during the course of the operator agreement, we will identify any amendments to the traffic bylaw which may be necessary and might include some minor concerns related to enforcement of parking, the definition of a scooter within the bylaw itself, and other minor revisions that the scooter pilot impacts, and these amendments will be brought forward to council for amendments at a later date. Of course, Neuron will be required to maintain a business license within the town. As we did with our previous operator, Marketing Communications, we'll develop and introduce a set of etiquette guidelines to be used while riders are utilizing the scooters. And lastly, in terms of financial implications, as I alluded to earlier, there is no cost borne to the town in this operator agreement. They are borne solely by the provider. And so in light of that, administration is recommending that council approve the Neuron Mobility Canada Limited Shared Micro Mobility Program as presented. And I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Councillor Pell.
Thank you, through the chair. Just one question. Are they requesting that this 2-year pilot be exclusive?
Good question. I asked the same, and at this time they are not.
They're not.
I think I asked why, and as we're well aware, there's just less operators in this space, and so I don't think there's much for competition.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I'll say I was disappointed. It was unfortunate that Roll was unable to return. I know that they had proposed in their business plan some sharing of revenue, which clearly wasn't necessarily the right business plan for them. But what I do like about Neuron is that they have, I think it's going to be better for our residents because they do have some different rate plans for people that use them more frequently. So I did like that, Neuron was picking up where Roll left off. So, seeing no other comments or questions, we do have a motion in front of, or a motion to consider. Someone's willing to move that. I guess I can do that. I don't do that very often. Oh, I see Councillor Stendy. I'm going to extend that to Councillor Stendy.
So first of all, I want to say thank you to administration for getting on top of this so quickly. I've already been asked multiple times in the last couple of weeks when scooters are coming back, because we've all been seeing them come out in surrounding communities like Red Deer. So I think people are excited for it. That said, I'll move that council approve Neuron Mobility Canada Limited shared micro mobility program as presented.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. 7.7 Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Committee member resignation.
Okay, thank you. As the business item alluded to, at the March 6th, our most recent EdTAC meeting, an email was presented from Member McQueen resigning as a member at large effective immediately. And as you are aware, the terms of reference state that the committee is to be comprised of a minimum of 8 members of the public at large, in addition to the required 2 members of council. These members at large require experience in or a passion for business, innovation, or economic development. Further, with this resignation, there is a 1 member at large vacancy on EdTAC, and as volunteer applications are received throughout the year, the position will remain open until such time as a volunteer candidate comes forward. I am happy to say that I think we've got a candidate in the wings, so we're looking forward to that individual coming forward. So in light of that, as you'll see, our recommendation here is the council move to formally accept the resignation of Joshua McQueen from the Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Committee, effective immediately with regrets.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Dennis?
I was going to make a motion.
Okay, if there's no other questions, seeing none.
I move that council moves to formally accept the resignation of Joshua McQueen from the Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Committee, effective immediately with regrets.
Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brings us to 7.8 Plaza wall structure and mural. Director Karkowicz.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. This item has been brought to Council a number of times. Originally, it started in June of 2022. We had selected Barron's to do our wall, or our structure wall for the plaza. And since that time, we changed the specs of the project, and we brought it to the March 20th Standing Committee meeting, and an RFP was issued. That RFP closed on April 18th, and good news is it came in lower. So it came in at $89,249.60. So we anticipated it to be a lot lower than what was initially what we initially had it at for 119. So with the change in the specifications, I think we have a better product that's going to last a lot longer and, of course, be more affordable for us. So, and according to them, the materials are readily available, so they can start construction out here right away. So, with that, we're just looking for your recommendation to award the plaza wall structure and mural to Barron's Group.
Thank you. Councillor Stenny.
So regarding the pictures, is this the final decision on pictures? The reason I ask is at Rec Board, there had been some discussion about the dog park photo looking kind of muddy and yucky, and potentially bringing in a photo of the agility course at the dog park instead. Were we able to find a photo to replace this one, or is this the final?
This is not the final.
Okay.
It'll be up to administration, but it will be similar to this.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? And I think it was clear in our previous discussions that this new design affords us the ability to change these panels at later dates if we feel like they age or if they wear, if they don't hold up well. I was appreciative of that. Sorry. Big picture, just scan it back in, or zoom back in on here. All right, if there's no other questions, we do have the administrative recommendation. Councillor Sands.
I'll move that council award the Plaza wall structure and mural to Barron's Group in the amount of $89,249.60.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
And 7.9, Arena Lease Space 1, Functional Pantry.
Yeah, so we did bring this, or this was brought forward to us from the business owner of the Functional Mobility and Health. We currently rent space in Arena Lease Space 2. They're looking at having a healthy food option in the lease space that's just across from Lease Space 2, which is Lease Space 1. And they were going to call it Functional Pantry, so similar to their other name. And so the intention is healthy food options, more so during the day, trying not to compete with our current vendor that's in the arena. This was brought forward to our rec board meeting on April 5th. We discussed it. The rec board was wanting to increase the amount that she had proposed to the same rate that she is currently paying now for functional mobility and health. And when I verbally had a discussion with her, she was in favor of doing that. So we're just looking to go into negotiations with her.
Thank you. Questions? Comments from council? Councillor Pell.
Thank you. Just for clarification, please. The same rate, you mean like per square foot
Yes,
rate, not the, okay,
that's right.
perfect. Thank you.
Now we're going to be, because it's food service, is there any equipment that we're potentially going to be needing to provide? Is that preliminary discussion indicated anything like that?
We are not providing any equipment. We are going to make sure that water is, and there is water easily on that site. That's one of the things that she wanted to make sure we had. So that's the only request that we have to provide for her. So.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis.
Do we have a contract with the current concession?
We are just in the process of negotiating that right now. So
Okay, so it won't interfere with the contract?
it doesn't interfere with their contract. No.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Councillor Pell.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Just have one further question then, because what Councillor Dennis said just sparked that in my brain. Has our current concession vendor, they've already been notified of this? They're aware of this?
Yeah, the current, she did have discussions with him about this proposition or this proposal. So she did have a quick discussion with him, tried to, basically say, I'm going to operate outside of your regular hours as much as possible. And I'm doing healthy food options, which is a little bit different from what you're providing. So as far as I know, that discussion has been good with them.
Okay. So I guess then a subsequent, in current contract discussions, negotiations, that hasn't come up from the current contractor as a potential issue?
That hasn't.
It
no.
has not. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we do have administrative recommendation to consider. Councillor Stendy.
I am prepared to move that council direct administration to enter into a lease agreement with Functional Pantry for Arena Lease Space 1 in the Eagle Builder Center for a period of 5 years.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? My only comment is I'm happy to see healthy options. Not to say that I don't also indulge in the regular vending options and food options, but nice to have some usage of this space. So I'm definitely in support. So I call the question. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that brings us to 7.10, the director's quarterly reports.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Before you, you do have the 3 divisions of the town here for the first quarter reports in writing there. I won't go through them as we do the CAO report monthly. This was a little bit more detailed within the directors' reports. We do have the directors here for any comments or questions, but the administration recommendation is that council accepts the directors' first quarter reports for 2023 as information.
Questions from council? Seeing none, can I get a motion to accept directors' quarterly reports as information? Councillor Sands.
I'll move that council accept the director's first quarter reports for 2023 as information.
Thank you. Debate or discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. And 7.11 National Youth Week Proclamation request.
Yes, thank you again. So every year we like to celebrate our youth in our community by proclaiming National Youth Week. This year, it'll be May 1st to 7th, 2023. This is our 5th year that Blackfalds has participated in celebrating National Youth Week. So, of course, we have a whole list of activities. There's an attachment in the package here, but basically from Sunday, May 1st, all the way until Thursday, May 5th, we have a whole lot of activities for our youth. And so I encourage all the youth in our community to participate and take advantage of what we're offering.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Seeing as I'm the one who ultimately signs this, I will make this motion that council move to proclaim May 1st to 7th, 2023 as National Youth Week in the town of Blackfalds. Any debate or discussion on the motion? All in favor? That's unanimous. We do have one item of action correspondence, 8.1, a letter from Minister Shulz regarding the updates to the Alberta edition of the building codes. I can just briefly comment that this has been a long time coming. This is adopting, partially adopting the national building codes, which is optional for provinces. And mainly the changes in this will be for energy efficiency standards in building. So I know we included this action correspondence, but I don't think that there's anything that as the town, this will, my question I guess would be, well, we don't necessarily have a development officer here, but will this impact our land use bylaw in any way? I see you shaking hands, so not at this point.
No, Your Worship, the land use bylaw references the National Building Code, the Alberta Building Code, so that won't change.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, can I get a motion to accept the action correspondence as information? Deputy Mayor Swab.
So moved.
All in favor? That is unanimous. Brings us to information items. Item 9.1, the day of mourning, April 28th, 2023. Lacombe Foundation 2022 audited financial statements, as was discussed earlier by CAO Report. 9.3 Lacombe Foundation Board meeting minutes from January 30th and February 27th. 9.4 Lacombe Foundation Advocacy 2023. And this will be what I essentially sent out to council the last regular council meeting. I know that I was at the Lacombe trade show this past weekend, and they had candidates for 4 different parties there. So it was an opportunity to, this is the information that Lacombe Foundation is looking for conversation. If you do happen to speak to any of the candidates and want to try and help move that Lacombe Lodge replacement ahead, as is some other things that we would hope to have conversations with those candidates. 9.5 rec board meetings for March 1st. Councillor Appel, Councillor
Thank
Bell.
you. So I do actually have one question regarding these minutes. 5.4 Abbey Center vandalism. It discusses a letter to be sent out. So my question is, has this letter been sent out? And if so, can council receive a copy?
Yeah, so a letter was not sent out. It was actually put into the newsletter of the school. We did issue something on social media, though, in relation to this.
Okay, wonderful. So I did see what went out on social media. Would it be possible for us to see a copy of the wording that went out in the school newsletter?
Yes, we can forward that to you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. 9.6 FCSS board meeting minutes for March 9. .7 letter to Minister Savage from the town of Tofield regarding the EPR. 9.8 Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors Highway 2A construction. Councillor Pell.
Thank you. So question, I guess, through to Director Warren. So in looking at the map that's been provided by the GOA, it looks like they're skipping the portion of the highway that's directly in town. Do we have confirmation on that? And yeah.
Yeah, through the chair. Through the chair, the area that they're only skipping past is the first little section of the roundabout. The remainder of the town is included in there. If you look at the bottom of the page there, so they're doing an overlay at the roundabout, I believe, and then they're going about 400 meters north of there, and then from there it's going right through town.
Thank you. Yes, sorry, I was spacing when I was looking at this earlier. So yeah, okay, cool. Thank you.
And I did notice that they had those signs covered for a long time, and now they've uncovered them. So now it's reality, right? We're going to hear hopefully some positive about that. 9.9 City of Lacombe highlights from April 11. And 9.10 County of Lacombe highlights from April 13. Any other questions about the information items? If not, can I get a motion to accept? Councillor Dennis.
I so move.
Accepting information items. That information, any debate or discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. And bring just a round table. We can start with people on my left. Councillor Dennis.
If anyone has any questions, it's pretty straightforward, I think.
Councillor Pell.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't have anything to add at this point. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Bob.
I forgot to add March 29th, the HR consultant initial meeting, but if anybody has any questions, they can feel free to reach out.
Councillor Sands?
I have nothing else to add.
Councillor Pell? Or Councillor Sandy?
Ditto. If anyone has any questions, you know how to contact me.
Thank you. Same for me. Anyone has any questions, they can let me know. Motion to accept roundtables as information. Deputy Mayor Bob.
I'll move to accept roundtable as information.
Thank you. All in favor? That is unanimous. And that brings us to adoption of minutes. 11.1 minutes from the regular council meeting on April 11th. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adopt those minutes? Councillor Sands?
I'll move to adopt these minutes.
Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous. 11.2 minutes from standing committee on April 17. Errors, omissions. Councillor Dennis?
I commented for the good of the committee about the traffic lights being installed on 597 and Highway 2.
Okay, I see nodding heads. Okay. Would you like to make the motion to adopt as amended?
Sure.
Councillor Dennis. All in favor? That is unanimous. And 11.3, special council meeting, April 18. There's no errors, omissions. A motion to adopt. Councillor Dennis.
I move to adopt the minutes.
Thank you. All in favor? That's unanimous. No notice of motion. No business for the good of council unless anyone else has any business for the good of council. And that ends the open portion of tonight's meeting. So can I get a motion? Maybe we'll go to 5-minute recess. Councillor Sands.
So moved.
All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.